Today, I'll tell you a story so defiant it forced a woman to choose love over law in the brutal wind-swept West, where justice wore a uniform and mercy was nowhere to be found. This was a place where fate stood at gunpoint, and every step forward meant turning your back on everything you were taught. It all started with a hunted man walking back into her life. One small act that sparked a chase across mountains, blood, and borders. Before we kick off this adventure, don't forget to hit like and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Colorado Territory, 1876. The wind tore through the valley, sharp with winter, scouring the rough spine of the land. Maribel Locke stood at the frost-glazed window of her father's trading post, eyes fixed on the snow spiraling down to bury the world beyond the glass. Her narrow fingers followed idle lines along the pane, the way memories traced their own paths across her chest. A full year since she had watched him vanish into those white-choked mountains. A year since Iktan had pressed his brow to hers and murmured promises in a blend of English and Apache meant only for them. A year since her tears had frozen on her cheeks as he turned away, carrying pieces of her heart with him. Marabel swept a strand of raven hair back behind her ear. The trading post lay hushed. The storm had driven folks indoors. Her father, Thaddeus Locke, had left for Denver 2 days earlier, leaving Marabel to mind the store with only Beryl Knox, the housekeeper, who was in the kitchen setting supper. "You keep staring at that window like you expect it to answer you," Beryl said, shuffling in, wiping her hands on her apron. "Your pa wouldn't be pleased to know you're still pining over that Indian." Maribel's spine tightened. "His name is Iktan, Beryl, and I'm not pining," she said evenly. "I'm watching the snow." The older woman's gaze softened. "Child, I've known you since you were knee-high to a grasshopper. You can't fool me. That Apache broke your heart when he left, and you've not been the same." Maribel turned from the window, pain and defiance flashing in her eyes. "He didn't break it. He did what he had to do." "His people needed him," Beryl said gently. "And what about what you needed? What about your father who worked himself raw to raise you right? What would the town say if they knew?" "I don't care what they'd say," Maribel whispered, though they both knew it wasn't wholly true. In this place, in this time, there were rules, unspoken lines about who could love whom, and Maribel Locke, daughter of a respected merchant, was never meant to give her heart to an Apache warrior. "Well, you should," Beryl replied without spite. "Now help me set the table. No sense dwelling on what can't be changed." Maribel followed her into the kitchen, thoughts drifting back to Iktan, the conflict in his eyes that last day, the way his hands had cradled her face as if she were made of porcelain, the way his voice had faltered when he said, "I'll come back for you, Maribel Locke. I swear it." A promise sealed in snow. She had carried it through the seasons, through spring when wildflowers bloomed along the river where they first met, through summer when heat recalled the fire of his touch, through autumn when falling leaves echoed her fading hope. Now winter had returned, hard and merciless, like the world that had torn them apart. The bell on the front door rang, snapping her back. She set down the plate, frowning. "Who would brave weather like this?" Beryl muttered, brushing flour from her hands. Maribel moved toward the store, her pulse quickening without reason. "I'll see who it is." The door opened just long enough for snow to sweep inside, dusting the floorboards. A tall figure stood there, wrapped in a heavy coat crusted with ice, a wide-brim hat shadowing his face. "We're about to close," Maribel said, steady despite the sudden flutter in her chest. "But if you need supplies to ride out the storm—" The man lifted a gloved hand and slowly removed his hat. Maribel's world lurched to a stop. Dark, unflinching eyes she had met nightly in dreams, features etched into memory, a face she was forbidden to love by every rule that mattered. "Iktan," she breathed, the wind swallowing her voice. He stood before her, changed, yet achingly the same. New scars cut his jaw and brow, his hair hung longer, tied back with leather. But his eyes, those were unchanged, deep and intent, holding her as if she were the lone star in his sky. "Maribel Locke," he said, his voice a low current. For a moment they didn't move, the space between them vast as mountains and thin as a whisper. Then anger surged, hot and sudden. 1 year of waiting, 1 year of wondering, 1 year of defending him to her father, to Beryl Knox, to herself, 1 year of cold nights and empty vows. "How dare you," she whispered, shaking. "How dare you come here after a year of silence? Not a word, Iktan, not one to say you were alive." Pain crossed his face. "I couldn't send word," Iktan said quietly. "It would have put you in danger." "In danger?" Marabel echoed, a brittle laugh slipping free. "What about the danger to my heart? To my soul? Do you have any idea what it's like to wake every morning not knowing if the man you love is dead or alive?" Beryl Knox appeared in the doorway behind Marabel, her eyes widening at the sight of him. "Lord help us," she murmured, crossing herself. Iktan never took his eyes off Maribel. "I made a promise," he said, as if those words could span a year of silence. "A promise," Maribel repeated, hollow. "And you think that's enough? You think you can just—" The sound of approaching horses cut her short. Iktan snapped toward the door, his body coiling with instinct. "Army patrol," he said low. "I was followed." Maribel's anger drained into fear. Iktan was Apache, no ordinary man. If soldiers were on his trail, he was hunted. Beryl moved fast, startling Maribel. "The cellar," she said, pointing to the trap door behind the counter. "Now, young man." Iktan hesitated, meeting Maribel's eyes. There was a question there, a plea. Despite the hurt, she knew her answer. She nodded once. "Go," she urged, already lifting the door. "I'll handle them." As Iktan slipped into the dark, Maribel caught his hand. For one heartbeat, they were bound again, skin to skin, pulse to pulse. "This doesn't mean I forgive you," she whispered. A faint smile touched his mouth. "I didn't expect forgiveness, Maribel Locke," he said. "Only the chance to earn it." Then he was gone. Boots thudded on the porch as Maribel shut the trap door, her heart hammering. Beryl studied her. "You know what you're doing, child?" "No," Maribel said softly, smoothing her dress. "But I know what I'm feeling." The door burst open, spilling snow and 3 blue-coated men inside, hands resting too easily on their pistols. "Evening, ma'am," the lead soldier said, removing his hat. His gaze swept the room with practiced ease. "Lieutenant Oric Hale, United States Army. Apologies for the intrusion. We're tracking a dangerous Apache. Seen anyone pass through?" Maribel met his eyes, feeling Iktan beneath her feet, his promise burning in her chest. "No, Lieutenant. No one's come through today. Storm kept folks home." Hale's eyes narrowed, though his tone stayed polite. "Mind if we take a look around? This Apache's a clever one. Wanted for attacks up and down the frontier. Goes by the name Iktan." Maribel's pulse jumped, but her face didn't betray it. "Of course. You'll find nothing but dry goods, and Beryl's apple pie cooling in the kitchen." As the men spread out, Maribel caught Beryl's eye. The older woman gave a small nod, solidarity that steadied her. Outside, the blizzard howled like a wounded animal. Inside, Maribel held her ground. Iktan's return had brought danger and heartache, and reignited a fire she'd tried to smother. The year of tears was done. This was the season of flame. Boots thudded overhead as the soldiers searched. Marabel answered Hale's questions with a calm she didn't feel. "Your father owns this place?" he asked, turning a tin of tobacco. "Yes, sir. Thaddeus Locke. He's in Denver on business." "And it's just you and Beryl Knox here?" Suspicion flickered. "Yes. He should be back within the week, weather permitting." Hale picked up a beaded bracelet from a small display. "Your father trades with natives. We trade with anyone who brings goods or coin," Marabel replied evenly. "My father believes commerce doesn't discriminate." "Admirable," Hale said, setting it down. "Perhaps naive." He faced her fully. "Miss Locke, are you familiar with the Apache called Iktan?" "I've heard stories," she said. "Travelers pass along rumors." "Not rumors," Hale snapped. "He's led raids from here to New Mexico. At least a dozen settlers and soldiers dead." His voice hardened. "He's educated. Speaks English better than some of my men. Makes him all the more dangerous." "Which only makes him more dangerous." Maribel's fingers curled into tight fists. "If he's so dangerous, Lieutenant, why haven't you caught him?" A flicker of irritation crossed Lieutenant Auric Hale's face. "He knows this country better than we do, and he has sympathizers." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "People who mistake his manners for virtue. People who see something noble in him, despite what he is." Marabel didn't retreat. "I'd imagine those people are scarce in Colorado these days, Lieutenant." "Not scarce enough." Hale studied her for a long beat. "If you see or hear anything about this Apache, it's your duty to report it immediately. He isn't just a criminal. He's an enemy of civilization." "I understand my duties," Marabel replied evenly. After what felt like an endless stretch, the soldiers finished their search. Finding nothing, they prepared to leave, though Hale lingered at the door. "Storm's getting worse," he said. "We'll likely camp nearby and resume once it breaks. Don't open your door to strangers tonight, Miss Locke." "I never do, Lieutenant," Marabel said. The irony wasn't lost on her. The door shut. Hooves faded into the wind. Marabel stood motionless, counting her breaths until she was certain they were gone. Then she crossed to the counter, lifted the trap door, and whispered, "They're gone." Iktan rose from the cellar like a shadow taking shape. In the lantern light, she saw him clearly now, the sharpened lines of his face, the watchful set of his shoulders. He moved with a hunter's quiet grace. Yet when his eyes met hers, the warmth she remembered was still there. "You lied to protect me," he said softly. "I lied to protect myself," Maribel shot back, stepping away. "If they'd found you here, what do you think they'd have done to me? To Beryl Knox?" Beryl emerged from the kitchen, stern but not unkind. "They'll be back," she said. "Your father'll be home in a few days." She fixed Iktan with a hard stare. "Whatever business you've got here, make it quick." Iktan inclined his head. "Thank you for your help." "Didn't do it for you," Beryl replied flatly, nodding toward Maribel. "I did it for her." She turned away. "I'm going to bed and pretending I don't know there's an Apache wanted by the army standing in my house. What happens next is between you two." She paused at the doorway. "But if you bring harm to this girl, Indian or not, I'll find a way to make you pay." When they were alone, the silence pressed in. Maribel moved behind the counter, kneading the barrier. "Why are you here?" she asked. Her voice barely carried. "I made a promise," Iktan said. "A promise?" she echoed sharply. "You promised to return. You also promised to send word when you could. A year, Iktan. Not a single message." "There was no safe way," he said, regret threading his voice. "The Army watches trading posts. Anyone carrying messages to or from Apache would be marked." "And what they're saying about you?" Maribel challenged. "The raids, the killings, is any of it true?" His jaw tightened. Some of it. Not the way they tell it. Then tell me your truth. He stepped closer, careful, as if she might bolt. My people are being driven from our land, pushed into smaller corners. When we resist, they call it murder. When they kill us, they call it progress. His gaze held hers. I fight to protect my people. I have killed, but never the innocent, never women or children. He called you educated, Maribel said. Said you speak English better than his men. A bitter smile touched Iktan's mouth. My father believed knowledge was power. He sent me to a mission school. Thought understanding the white man's ways would help us survive. The smile faded. He was wrong. Understanding didn't bring acceptance. It only made me more dangerous to them. Maribel searched his face for the man she'd loved a year ago, and found him there, beneath the scars and the hard edges, shaped now by survival. Why now? She asked. Why come back when you're being hunted? His eyes darkened with resolve. Because I kept my promise to the woman who holds my heart, and because it's getting worse. The army presses harder every day. There's talk of forcing all Apache onto reservations, far from this land. And what does that have to do with me? Maribel asked. Everything. Iktan reached across the counter slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His fingers brushed hers, a brief contact that sent a jolt through her despite the anger she held tight. I came back for you, Maribel Locke, he said, to ask you to come with me. Her breath caught. Come with you? Where? South, into New Mexico territory, maybe farther. There are places the army hasn't touched, places where a man and a woman might live in peace, no matter their blood. The audacity of it struck her like a blow. You vanish for a year, then return expecting me to abandon everything, my father, my home, my life, to run away with you? Not expecting, Iktan said gently. Hoping. Praying, though he didn't say the word. Maribel pulled her hand back, folding her arms around herself. You can't walk back into my life and ask this of me. The world doesn't work that way. Our world never did, he replied. From the moment we met, we broke what was expected, what was allowed. The memory surged up, her gathering herbs by the river, the tall Apache drinking from clear water. Fear hadn't found her then. Curiosity had. She hadn't retreated. She'd stayed. Their first words had been careful, her proper English, his measured phrases. But something had sparked. Over months of secret meetings, that spark had grown into a fire neither could deny. She learned Apache words. He recited poems from the mission school. They shared stories, dreams, and finally their hearts. It was different then, Maribel said, returning to the present. You weren't being hunted. I wasn't lying to soldiers. It was always dangerous, Iktan answered. We only pretended it wasn't. The truth stung. They had lived inside a fragile bubble, ignoring the hard edges of the world. Now it had burst, leaving them exposed to consequence. Maribel turned to tend the small stove. You can't stay. If the soldiers return, I know, he said, resignation in his voice. I have a camp in the foothills, hidden, safe. Then why risk coming here at all? She faced him again. Why endanger yourself, us? Because a promise must be kept, Iktan said firmly. Then, lower. And because I needed to see your face, to know if what we had still lived in your heart as it does in mine. Tears threatened. Maribel swallowed them down. She would not cry, not again. What do you see then? She asked. What does my face tell you? He studied her, missing nothing. The tight jaw, the tremor at her lips, the way her hands clenched her skirts. I see anger, he said. Pain, confusion. A pause. And beneath it, embers of what once burned between us. Buried, maybe, she said carefully. Not flames. Embers can die, he agreed, or they can be fed back to fire. He held her gaze. I didn't come to force you, Maribel Locke. I came to give you a choice. Some choice, she said bitterly. Stay and forget you, or abandon everything to flee with a man the army wants. Life rarely offers easy paths, Iktan replied, a sad smile touching his mouth. I'll be in the foothills for 3 days. If you choose me, follow the creek north to the Split Rock. I'll find you there. His expression tightened. If you don't come, I'll go south alone, and trouble you no more. The finality struck her hard. This was the moment that would shape her future. Before she could answer, a sharp knock cracked the air. Iktan vanished into the shadows at the back of the store, moving with startling speed. Maribel's heart raced as she went to the door. Who is it? She called, steadying her voice. Miss Locke, came the reply. It's Lieutenant Auric Hale again. Sorry to trouble you, miss, but we found tracks leading this way. Maribel shot a panicked glance toward Iktan, who was already easing toward the back door. He paused, turning just long enough for their eyes to meet. 3 days, he mouthed silently. Then he was gone, slipping into the snowstorm like a specter, leaving Maribel to face Lieutenant. Auric Hale, with secrets burning in her chest and choices rising before her like mountains. By morning, the sky broke clear and blinding. The storm spent some time in the night. Maribel rose early, her sleep restless and torn by dreams of Iktan, sometimes running through snow-choked pines, sometimes lying still while dark blood seeped into the white. Hale and his men had scoured the ground around the trading post after returning the night before, but the heavy snowfall had swallowed every trace. They'd left frustrated, wary, Hale promising to return the next day. Maribel went through her morning chores on instinct alone, her thoughts circling Iktan's offer. Leave everything behind. Begin again somewhere far away. The thought both terrified and thrilled her. Quiet morning, Beryl Knox remarked as they worked in the kitchen. You're thinking about that Apache, I reckon. Maribel looked up, startled. I thought you were pretending you didn't know he was here. Beryl snorted. Pretending for their sake, not yours? She kneaded the bread with practiced hands. What did he want, child? And don't tell me it was only to keep a promise. Maribel hesitated, then spoke. He asked me to go with him, to leave here and head south. Beryl's hands stilled. Leave your father, your home, everything you know. She shook her head. That's madness. Is it? Maribel asked softly. What future do I have here? Marry some local boy who sees me as a convenient match? Keep house while he drinks himself numb at the saloon? And what kind of future would you have with an Apache warrior? Beryl countered. Always running, always hiding, always afraid. At least it would be my choice, Maribel said, her voice stronger now. My life, lived on my terms. Beryl wiped her hands on her apron, her expression easing. Oh, child, I know that pull. Your heart one way, the world the other. But this isn't just about love, it's dangerous. I know, Maribel said. The bell over the door cut her short. She composed herself and went out front. A young man in threadbare clothes stood inside, twisting his hat nervously. Maribel recognized Calder Wren, whose family homestead lay a few miles east. Morning, Miss Locke, he said, bobbing his head. Pa sent me for supplies. Flour and coffee. Maybe sugar, if you've got it. Of course, Maribel replied, moving behind the counter. How's your family after the storm? Well enough. Pa's worried, though, about that Apache folks say is around here. He lowered his voice. Soldiers came by yesterday. Warned everyone to stay alert. Said he's dangerous as they come." Maribel's hands faltered as she measured flour. "I'm sure the army will handle it." Calder leaned closer, eager. "Pa says we can't count on the army for everything. Says we might have to handle it ourselves. There's talk of forming a posse, men banding together to hunt him down. There's even a bounty now, $500, dead or alive." Her stomach turned, but she kept her face neutral. "That seems extreme." "Not for what he's done," Calder insisted. "Pa says this one's clever, educated, makes him worse than the others 'cause he knows better." The door opened again, the bell jangling sharp. Laltith. Oric Hale stepped inside, removing his hat as he crossed the threshold. "Miss Locke," he said, then nodded to Calder. "Wren." "Lieutenant," they replied. Hale scanned the store. "I trust the night passed without incident." "Yes, sir," Marabel answered. "Just the usual quiet." Hale turned to Calder. "Your father joining the search party this afternoon?" Calder straightened, trying to look older than 16. "Yes, sir. Pa's bringing the tracking dogs." "Good man." Hale shifted his attention back to Marabel. "Miss Locke, we're expanding our search. That Apache, Iktan, was spotted near Ridgeline Creek last evening. We believe he's still close." Marabel held herself steady, though her heart raced. Ridgeline Creek lay barely a mile from the post. "I see. Well, I hope you find him quickly, Lieutenant, for everyone's safety." "Indeed," Lieutenant Oric Hale said, studying her face. "Miss Locke, forgive my bluntness, but I've been thinking about our talk yesterday. You seemed guarded when I mentioned that Apache." Marabel lifted her chin a fraction. "I assure you, Lieutenant, I have no reason to feel guarded about someone I've never met." "Of course," Hale replied smoothly. "It's only that there were stories, some time ago, of a white woman seen with this Apache before he became so well known." His eyes never left hers. "Trading posts like this one, frontier places, they sometimes become crossroads between worlds better kept apart." Cold fear slid through Maribel's veins, but her face remained calm. "If you're implying something about me or my father's business, Lieutenant, I'd appreciate you saying it plainly." Hale smiled faintly. "Nothing specific, Miss Locke. Just conversation." He set his hat back on his head. "We'll be searching the eastern ridges today. If you see or hear anything unusual, fire 3 shots into the air. We'll come running." After he left, Calder Wren finished his purchase in a hurry and slipped out, clearly eager to report what he'd witnessed. When the door finally closed, Beryl Knox emerged from the back room. "That soldier suspects something," she said quietly. Marabel nodded, her hands shaking now that the mask could fall. "He knows, or at least suspects, about me and Iktan. Someone must have seen us together last year." Beryl sighed. "This grows more dangerous by the hour." "I know." Marabel went to the window, staring out at the blinding white world. Somewhere beyond it, Iktan was hiding, waiting, hoping. "Beryl, if I were to leave, would you tell my father why?" The older woman was silent for a long moment. "You're truly considering it, then? Going with him?" "I don't know," Marabel said, turning back. "I only know that since he walked through that door, I've felt more alive than I have in a year." Beryl shook her head slowly. "It's not my place to rule your heart, child, but think carefully. This isn't some romance from a novel. This is life and death." "I know," Marabel whispered. "Believe me, I know." As afternoon slid toward evening, restlessness gnawed at her. The trading post stayed busy, many customers coming as much for news of the hunt as for supplies. Each time the door opened, Marabel tensed, half expecting soldiers dragging Iktan in chains. When the last customer left and Beryl retired with a headache, Maribel made her choice. Not to go with him, not yet, but to see him. To speak without soldiers' eyes or whispered rumors pressing in. She waited until full dark, then dressed warmly. Coat, gloves, boots. She left a note for Beryl, saying she needed air and had gone for a short walk. With a lantern in hand and a small pistol tucked into her pocket, a habit her father insisted on, Marabel slipped into the night. The cold bit her cheeks as she headed toward Ridgeline Creek. Snow had crusted hard, crunching underfoot. A near-full moon washed the land in silver, the lantern needed only in the deepest shadows of the pines. She knew the risk. If the Ashfall troopers found her, she'd have no excuse. If settlers saw her, rumors would fly. Still, the need to finish what had been interrupted overruled caution. She followed the creek north, breath clouding the air. The split rock Iktan mentioned lay miles upstream, too far tonight, but she hoped if he watched, he'd see her intent. After half an hour, she stopped in a small clearing by the creek. Water murmured beneath thin ice, a gentle counterpoint to her racing thoughts. She raised the lantern and scanned the trees. "Iktan," she called softly. "Are you there?" Silence answered. She waited, listening, to the creek, an owl's distant call, the sigh of wind through pine. She was about to call again when instinct prickled. She turned sharply. A figure stood at the edge of the clearing, half hidden by a tall pine. "Iktan," Maribel whispered, hope surging. The figure stepped forward, and hope froze in her veins. Not Iktan. Lit Auric Hale, his uniform dark against the snow. "Miss Locke," he said, triumph and disappointment mingling in his voice. "Out for a midnight stroll?" Maribel steadied herself. "Lieutenant, you startled me." "I imagine I did." He moved closer, one hand resting casually on his holster. "A curious place for a young lady to be walking alone at night." "I needed air," Maribel Locke said, repeating the excuse she'd left for Beryl Knox. "The trading post gets close after a long day." "And you just happened to walk north along Ridgeline Creek," Lit Auric Hale replied. His voice hardened. "The same creek where tracks were found yesterday. The same direction someone would take if they meant to reach the foothills, where an Apache might be hiding." "I don't know what you're implying, Lieutenant," Maribel said. Her hand drifted instinctively toward the pocket where the small pistol rested. "I think you do." Hale stepped closer. "I think you know exactly where the Apache called Iktan is hiding. I think you're trying to warn him, or help him escape." His eyes narrowed. "You're the woman from the stories, aren't you? The white woman seen with him last year." Maribel's silence answered him. Hale shook his head slowly. "I didn't want to believe it. Thaddeus Locke's daughter consorting with a savage." "A human being," Maribel shot back, finding her voice. "Someone who sees beyond a man's skin or the language of his birth." "It makes you a traitor," Hale spat. "To your race, to your country, to civilization itself." Her chin lifted. If civilization means hating and killing those who are different, maybe it deserves betrayal. Anger darkened Hale's face. "You'll tell me where he is. Now. Or I'll arrest you for aiding a wanted criminal." "I don't know where he is," Maribel said. And it was true. She only knew where he would be in 3 days, at the Split Rock. "I don't believe you." Hale's hand slid from his holster, gripping his pistol. "Men are dying while you protect this savage." "He's not a savage," Maribel said, emotion breaking through. "He's a man fighting for his people's survival, something I imagine you'd understand if your own home were threatened." Hale laughed, cold and sharp. "Save your noble savage speeches. I've buried too many good men for sentiment." His grip tightened. "Where is he hiding?" A twig snapped behind him. Both froze. Hale spun, weapon raised toward the dark between the trees. "Show yourself," he called. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then, like a piece of night stepping free, Iktan emerged into the moonlight. Buckskins blended with the forest, a knife at his belt, no other weapons in sight. His eyes took everything in at once. Maribel's fear, Hale's drawn pistol. "I am here," Iktan said calmly, hands held away from his body. "Leave the woman. Your quarrel is with me." Hale's pistol centered on his chest. "By order of the United States Army, you are under arrest for murder, raiding, and insurrection." "What you call insurrection," Iktan replied evenly. "I call survival." His gaze flicked to Maribel. "Are you harmed?" She shook her head, fear for him flooding her eyes. "How touching," Hale sneered. He kept the gun trained on Iktan while pulling manacles from his belt. "On your knees, hands behind your back." Iktan didn't move. "And if I refuse?" "Then I shoot you where you stand and collect the bounty," Hale said flatly. "Dead or alive, it's all the same." Maribel's heart thundered. "Lieutenant, please." "Silence," Hale snapped. "You've betrayed your own kind. You'll face consequences soon enough." In that instant, Maribel chose. Her hand slid into her pocket, fingers closing around the pistol her father had given her for protection. She drew it in one smooth motion and leveled it at Hale's back. "Lower your weapon," she commanded, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. Hale stiffened, but didn't turn. "You won't shoot me, Miss Locke. You're not a killer." "I don't want to be," Maribel said quietly. Her grip tightened around the pistol. "But I won't stand here and watch you murder him." A brittle, airless silence settled over the clearing. For several heartbeats, no one moved. Lieutenant Hale aiming at Iktan, Maribel aiming at Hale, and Iktan watching them both with a calm that felt almost unreal. Then everything exploded. With a speed that stole Maribel's breath, Iktan surged forward, ducking beneath Hale's aim. The lieutenant fired, the shot tearing wide as Iktan slammed into him. They crashed into the snow, grappling hard, Hale's pistol skittering across the frozen ground. Maribel stood frozen, her small gun useless now that the men were locked together. Hale was larger, heavier, trained by the army, but Iktan fought with the fluid precision of a man who had survived his whole life by instinct and resolve. They rolled through the snow, fists striking flesh, harsh breaths breaking the night. Hale wrenched a knife from his boot, the blade flashing silver in the moonlight. He slashed. Iktan twisted away, but steel kissed his arm, drawing a thin ribbon of red against the white ground. Iktan answered with a brutal elbow to Hale's throat. The lieutenant gagged, his grip loosening. In a swift reversal, Iktan pinned him, trapping the knife hand beneath his knee. They locked eyes, both breathing hard, hatred, understanding, and something darker passing between them. "Do it," Hale rasped, defiant even now. "Prove me right. Show her what you really are." Iktan held his gaze. "What I am," he said quietly, "is not what you believe." He twisted Hale's wrist until the knife fell free, then struck him once, clean and precise, at the temple. Hale went limp, unconscious but alive. Iktan rose, blood seeping from the cut on his arm and smaller wounds darkening his skin. He turned to Maribel. "We must go. Now. Others will have heard the shot." Maribel stood rooted, the weight of what had happened crashing over her like ice water. She had aimed a weapon at a United States Army officer. She had chosen a wanted man over her own government. There was no going back. "Maribel," Iktan said more gently, approaching slowly. "We have little time." She looked at Hale's motionless form, then down at the pistol still clutched in her hand. "What have I done?" she whispered. "You chose," Iktan said simply. He eased the pistol from her trembling fingers. "Now we live with that choice." Distant voices echoed through the trees. That sound snapped her free. "My things," she said, mind racing to the trading post, to Beryl Knox. "I can't just disappear." "There's no time for the post," Iktan replied, already moving deeper into the forest. "But we can circle back so you may say farewell. Then we ride south." Marabel cast one last look at Lutinors. Auric Hale then followed Iktan into the trees, leaving behind footprints in the snow, silent proof of a life forever changed. The return to the trading post was tense and swift. Iktan guided her through paths she would never have found alone. They spoke little, the weight of their choice pressing between them. At the edge of the trees, Iktan stopped. The post lay dark and still, a single lamp glowing in the kitchen window. "Wait here," Maribel whispered. "I'll speak to Beryl and gather what I can." Iktan nodded, eyes scanning the night. "Be quick. The soldier will be found soon, if he hasn't already awakened." Maribel crossed the yard, heart pounding. The back door opened before she reached it. Beryl Knox stood there in her nightgown and shawl, worry etched deep into her face. "Child, where have you been?" She stopped short, taking in Maribel's disheveled state and the fire in her eyes. "What's happened?" Maribel slipped inside and closed the door. In hurried whispers, she told her everything: the confrontation, Hale's accusation, Iktan's intervention, and her decision to flee. Beryl listened without interruption, her expression hardening with each word. When Maribel finished, the older woman exhaled slowly. "So it's done then?" "It is," Maribel said, already gathering what she could: a change of clothes, her mother's locket, the small sum of money she'd saved. "I'm sorry to leave you with the consequences." Beryl waved it off. "I'll manage. They can't prove I knew a thing." She paused. "I'll tell your father." Maribel froze. "What will you tell him?" "The truth," Beryl said, "that you followed your heart, for better or worse." Maribel's hands stilled, tears threatening. "Will you hate me for this? For leaving you and my father?" Beryl's weathered face softened. "Hate you?" Beryl Knox pulled Maribel into a fierce embrace. "Oh, child, I could never hate you." Maribel clung to the woman who had been like a second mother since her own had died years ago. "Fear for you, yes," Beryl continued softly. "Worry myself sick, certainly. But hate? Never." "I have to go," Maribel whispered. "I love him, Beryl. Despite everything, I love him." Beryl released her, brushing a tear from her cheek. "Love is the simplest thing in this world," she said, "and the most complicated." She moved quickly, filling a cloth sack with dried meat, bread, and what provisions she could spare. "Take this." Then she pressed a small leather pouch into Maribel's hand. "My savings. It's not much, but it may help." "I can't," Maribel began. "You can, and you will," Beryl cut in firmly. "Now go, before those soldiers return." With one last embrace, tears flowing freely now, Maribel slipped back into the night, her few belongings bundled close. She found Iktan waiting in the trees. "She knows," Maribel said. Her voice trembled. Iktan studied her face in the moonlight and gently brushed away a tear. "Are you certain, Maribel Locke?" he asked quietly. "Once we leave, there is no returning to the life you knew." She drew a steadying breath. "I know. But the life I knew was incomplete without you." She squared her shoulders. "I'm ready. Lead the way." A rare smile softened his features. He took her hand, and together they vanished into the forest, walking toward an uncertain future they would face side by side. 3 days later, Marabel stood beside a small fire in a sheltered canyon far from the trading post. She watched as Iktan prepared the 2 horses they'd managed to secure for their journey south. Her body ached from long hours in the saddle over ground she'd once thought impassable. Her hands, once soft from a life of comfort, were already roughening with calluses. Yet despite the pain, despite the constant fear of pursuit, a strange freedom filled her. The weight of expectation had fallen away, replaced by simpler needs: food, shelter, survival. "We should reach the edge of New Mexico territory by tomorrow evening," Iktan said, tightening a strap. "There's a place there, a valley my father spoke of. Good water, game. Few white men know it." Maribel nodded, watching the flames. "And then?" Iktan paused, studying her across the fire. "Then we build a life, Maribel. One we choose, not one dictated by others." "Will it be enough?" she asked softly. "Just us, always hiding, always looking over our shoulders?" He moved to her side, firelight reflecting in his eyes. "For now it must be. But perhaps the world will change, or we'll find others who judge by the heart, not the skin." She wanted to believe him, to imagine a future without fear. But the past days had been harsh, skirting ashfall troopers, avoiding settlements where bounty hunters might lurk. That future felt distant. "What of your people?" she asked. "You left them to come back for me. Will you not return?" A shadow crossed his face. "My people are scattered. Those not killed or taken have fled far south or deep into the mountains. The tribe I was born to lives now only in memory." The pain in his voice cut deep. Maribel took his hand. "I'm sorry. I can't imagine such loss." "It is the way of these times," Iktan said, steady despite the sadness in his eyes. "The old world dies. Something new rises from its ashes. What matters is what we carry forward: honor, courage, love." His grip tightened. "These cannot be taken." Marabel leaned into him, drawing strength from his presence. "When I was a girl, my father told stories of pioneers heading west to start anew. I never imagined I'd become one. Fleeing east instead, with an Apache warrior at my side." A small smile touched Iktan's lips. "Life rarely follows the stories we're told as children." "No," Maribel agreed. "Maybe that's for the best. Maybe we get to write our own." Iktan stiffened suddenly, head snapping toward the canyon entrance. The tenderness vanished, replaced by the alertness of a hunted man. "What is it?" Maribel whispered. "Horses," he said, already moving to smother the fire. Several riders, moving fast. Fear seized her heart. "Soldiers?" "Perhaps," Iktan said tightly, "or bounty hunters." He worked fast, scooping up their few belongings. "We move deeper into the canyon. There are caves, places to hide until they pass." They moved with practiced urgency, the routine of flight already learned. Within moments the fire was smothered, every sign of them erased. Iktan led the horses while Marabel followed, stepping carefully through the dark toward the narrow end of the canyon. They were nearly at the caves when a rifle cracked, the sound ricocheting off stone. Iktan shoved Marabel hard toward a cluster of boulders as another shot rang out, stone splintering dangerously close. "Stay down," he hissed. He drew the rifle they'd taken from Lieutenant Oric Hale's horse 3 days earlier and checked the chamber. "Apache," a voice shouted from the canyon mouth. "We know you're in there. Come out now and we might let the woman live." Maribel's blood turned to ice. These weren't soldiers. At least, not only soldiers. The voice belonged to Jorah Wren, father of Calder Wren. The posse Hale had warned of, the Crowbone posse, had found them. 8 riders, Iktan murmured after a quick glance from cover. "Armed, spread across the mouth." "What do we do?" Maribel asked, forcing her voice steady. Iktan's face was grim in the moonlight. The caves connect through the mountain. There's a path, hard but possible. It leads out to the eastern slope. And the horses? We leave them. His hand found hers in the dark. It will be harder going. We have no choice. Another shot slammed into the rocks nearby, followed by Jorah's voice again. Last chance, Apache. Surrender, or we shoot to kill. Iktan turned to Marabel, eyes fierce. Go to the largest cave straight back. Take the left passage until you reach water. Wait for me there. She clutched his arm. What are you going to do? Buy us time, he said flatly. Go. Now. Quietly. I won't leave you. You must, Iktan insisted. Trust me, Maribel Locke. I didn't come back for you only to lose you now. He pressed a quick, fierce kiss to her lips. Go. Heart pounding, Maribel slipped away, staying low and using the rocks for cover. Behind her, Iktan fired towards the canyon entrance. Shouts answered, sharp and angry. The cave mouth yawned black against the stone. Maribel entered cautiously, darkness swallowing her whole. She felt her way forward, one hand on the rough wall, the other stretched ahead. Gunfire outside echoed strangely, making it impossible to judge what was happening. Remembering his words, she took the left passage where the tunnel forked. The ground sloped down, air turning damp and cool. After what felt like an endless crawl through blackness, she heard water. Soft, running. She stopped, listening. The gunfire had faded. Distance or silence. She couldn't tell. The not knowing clawed at her. Iktan, she whispered. The sound felt too loud in the confined space. No answer. Maribel sank beside the underground stream, her back against cold stone. She would wait. She would trust him. What other choice did she have? Time stretched painfully. Without light, minutes blurred into hours. She strained to hear any sign of him, any hint he'd escaped. Only the stream answered, the drip of water from the ceiling. Her mind betrayed her with images. Iktan wounded, Iktan captured, Iktan lying dead in the canyon, blood dark on stone. No, she whispered fiercely. He'll come. He promised. As if summoned, a faint scraping reached her ears. Maribel froze. It came again. Careful movement in the tunnel. Iktan? She called, louder now. The sound paused, then quickened. A moment later, a hand touched her shoulder in the dark, and relief nearly buckled her. It's me, Iktan said softly, his voice the sweetest sound she'd ever known. Maribel reached for him blindly, hands finding solid warmth. What happened? Are you hurt? Scratches only, he replied. Yet something in his voice told her the night wasn't finished yet. It suggested he was downplaying his wounds. I sent them chasing a false trail, Iktan said quietly, then doubled back to the caves. They're combing the western slopes now. Will they find this passage? Maribel asked. Unlikely. Few even know it exists. Iktan shifted closer. We rest here until first light. Then we move east, not south, exactly where they won't expect us. Maribel leaned into him as the rush of fear ebbed, leaving bone-deep fatigue behind. How long can we keep running, Iktan? They seem set on hunting you to the ends of the earth. He was silent for a while. Not forever, he said at last, but long enough perhaps to reach Apache lands far to the south, or to find a place so remote they abandon the chase. It wasn't comforting, but it was honest. I don't regret it, Maribel said softly. Coming with you. No matter what happens, you should know that. His arm tightened around her. Nor do I regret returning for you, Maribel Locke. Some things are worth any risk. They fell quiet. Two figures huddled in absolute darkness, listening to the underground stream. Outside, men with hate in their hearts searched. Beyond that waited an uncertain future. But here, between worlds, they had a fragile refuge. For now, it was enough. At dawn, they emerged from a narrow opening onto the eastern slope. The rising sun washed the plains in gold and rose. Marabel blinked against the light, taking in the vastness ahead. Iktan moved with a stiffness that confirmed her fears. A dark stain spread beneath his ribs on the left side of his buckskin. "You're hurt," she said, reaching for him. He caught her hand gently. "A graze. It stopped bleeding." She didn't believe him, but now wasn't the time. "Let me bind it properly when we stop." He nodded, eyes already reading the land. "First water, then shelter. We travel by night until we're clear of this place." Without horses, they would be slower, their supplies thinner. Yet they had come this far, and Marabel felt a growing confidence. She learned quickly, and under Iktan's patient guidance, she was beginning to read the wilderness, signs of water, shelter, danger. They descended carefully, avoiding loose rock that might give them away. By mid-morning they reached a small stream, refilled their skins, and Iktan caught 2 fish with a speed that still astonished her. As they ate, Maribel studied his profile against the mountains behind them. The past days had changed him, or perhaps revealed him. The careful tenderness, the fierce patience as he taught her to survive. "What are you thinking?" he asked, catching her gaze. "That I never truly knew you before," she said with a faint smile. "When we met by the river, it felt like a dream. This—" She gestured to their meager pack, the miles already traveled. "This is real." He considered her words. "And is reality disappointing compared to the dream?" "No," she said honestly. "Harder, yes. Different. But not disappointing." She took his hand. "In the dream, we shared moments. In reality, we share a life. However difficult, that matters more." Something softened in him. Vigilance gave way to a rare tenderness. "You surprise me, Maribel Locke. Many raised as you were would have broken by now." "Maybe I'm stronger than I look," she said, a note of pride in her voice. "Perhaps you're exactly as strong as I always knew," Iktan replied. "That's why I came back, not to rescue you, but to ask you to walk beside me as an equal." The warmth of his words lingered, then shattered with a distant bird call Marabel now recognized as a warning among his people. Iktan tensed, already gathering their few things. "Someone's coming," he said softly. "Trackers?" Marabel asked, fear churning in her stomach. Iktan shook his head slightly. "The call was Apache, my people." He sounded uncertain, which was rare for him. "It could still be a trap. The army has forced captured Apache to help track others before. What do we do?" He waited for a moment. "We answer, but carefully." Rising, he stepped into a more open spot and returned the bird call with a subtle variation Marabel knew she could never have imitated. Then he waited, one hand near his knife, his body angled protectively between her and the trees. Long minutes stretched before a figure appeared across the stream at the edge of the timber, a man dressed like Iktan, carrying the same quiet pride. He lifted a hand in greeting and spoke in Apache. Iktan answered in the same tongue, his stance easing but not fully relaxing. Their exchange was rapid and foreign to Maribel, though she caught her own name more than once. At last Iktan turned. "This is Ocean, son of my father's brother. He brings news." Maribel rose, smoothing her travel-worn dress. "What news?" Iktan spoke briefly with his cousin, then answered. "The army is pulling back from this region. Most soldiers have been ordered north to deal with resistance elsewhere. The hunt for us may ease." Relief washed through her. So we may not have to run as far? Perhaps not. He nodded. Ocean also says there's a small band of our people, mostly women, children, and elders, camped in a hidden valley 3 days southeast. They plan to move farther south to join others near the Mexican border. Marabel heard the unspoken question. You want to join them? Help them? Iktan searched her face. It would be safer than traveling alone, but it means living as Apache, Marabel. Not all will welcome you. She considered what that meant, joining his people, becoming part of a community that might distrust her, learning a new language, new customs, a different life entirely. Yet the alternative, endless flight, felt just as daunting. Would you teach me? She asked at last. Your language, your ways? Hope flickered in his eyes. If you are willing to learn. She squared her shoulders. Then we go southeast, to your people, Iktan translated. Ocean studied Marabel, then spoke again, earning a small smile from Iktan. What did he say? She asked. He said you have the spirit of an Apache woman, stubborn as stone, but able to flow like water. Marabel smiled, despite herself. I'll take that as a compliment. It was meant as one, Iktan said. He spoke again to Ocean, who nodded and began moving downstream, signaling them to follow. As they gathered their few belongings, a quiet rightness settled over Maribel. The road ahead was uncertain and hard, but for the first time since leaving the trading post, they were moving toward something, not just away. Toward a future neither could have imagined a year earlier, when Iktan had left her in tears by a frozen river. She took his hand as they followed Ocean downstream. The sun climbed higher, warming their backs, their shadows stretching ahead like promises. Behind them lay the past, the trading post, Luturn. Auric Hale, the bounty hunters, the world that had forbidden their love. Ahead waited hardship and prejudice, still to be faced. But between them flowed something stronger than fear, more enduring than hatred. It was for this that Iktan had returned, for this that Marabel had left everything familiar, not for a fantasy, but for the chance to build something real. As they walked into the rising light, his hand tightened around hers. She squeezed back, silent agreement to all they had risked, all they had endured, and all that still lay ahead. The Apache warrior and the merchant's daughter, defying a world that denied them, making a path where none had been. Their story, like the land itself, was wild and untamed, full of danger and promise. But it was theirs, and that made all the difference. 6 months later, Apache lands near the Mexican border. Maribel sat cross-legged outside the small wickiup she now called home, nimble fingers weaving reeds into a basket. The afternoon sun warmed shoulders bronzed by months outdoors. Her old dresses were long gone, replaced by buckskin adorned with beadwork she'd learned under the guidance of the women. Those same women who had once eyed her with suspicion and now offered cautious acceptance. They had grown impressed by her eagerness to learn their ways, her quick grasp of basic Apache phrases, and, perhaps most of all, the unmistakable depth of Iktan's love for her. Shiyaji, Maribel murmured to herself, practicing the Apache endearment Iktan had taught her. My little one. Her hand drifted instinctively to her belly, where the first faint curve had begun to show. Their child. A living bridge between two worlds. A promise shaped from hope. Movement at the edge of the camp caught her eye. Iktan was returning from a hunt with several men. Even at a distance, she knew him instantly, by the rhythm of his stride, by the way her heart recognized him before her eyes confirmed it. He saw her and veered from the group, heading straight toward her. As he drew closer, Marabel noticed with quiet relief that he moved freely now, without the stiffness that had lingered during their journey south. The bullet graze from their escape had healed cleanly, leaving only a thin, pale scar among many others that told the story of his life. "Shiyaji," she greeted him softly, using one of the few Apache phrases she could pronounce with confidence. "My heart." Iktan smiled, the expression transforming his usually solemn features. "Your accent improves," he said, switching to English. Though Apache was their daily language now, they still used English in private moments, a quiet thread tying Marabel to her past. "The women laugh less when I speak," Marabel replied with a faint grin, "though I still ruin half the words." He settled beside her, watching her fingers weave reeds with practiced care. "You learn faster than I learned English at the mission school." Her hands paused. "Do you ever regret bringing me here?" It was a question she rarely voiced, though it sometimes haunted the stillness before dawn. Iktan considered it carefully, as he always did. "No," he said at last. "I regret the hardships you faced because of me." "Not because of you," Marabel corrected gently, "because of a world that fears what it doesn't understand." She resumed weaving. "And for every hardship, there's been joy." She took his hand and placed it against her belly. Iktan's eyes widened slightly. "You are certain?" She nodded, a smile blooming. "Yuma confirmed it yesterday. Come spring, there will be a new voice in our wiki up." Wonder and concern crossed his face. "A child of two worlds. The path will not be easy." "No path worth walking ever is," Marabel replied, echoing words he himself had spoken during their flight from Colorado. They sat in shared silence, Marabel weaving, Iktan resting a reverent hand on her belly. Around them, the camp moved with quiet life, children laughing, women working, men preparing the evening meal. It was not the life Maribel had been raised to expect. It lacked the comforts of the trading post, the certainty of settled walls. Yet it offered freedoms she had never known. To love openly, to choose her own path, to build something new rather than inherit the old. "A letter came," Iktan said at last, reaching into his leather pouch. "From Beryl Knox." Maribel's hands trembled as she took the folded paper. Letters were rare now, carried only by trusted traders who moved carefully between Apache and white settlements. This was only the second she'd received since leaving Colorado. She opened it slowly, Beryl's neat handwriting bringing the older woman's voice vividly to mind. "My dearest Maribel, I pray this finds you safe and well. Your father, Thaddeus Locke, asks after you often, though his anger has softened with time. The trading post continues as always, though it feels empty without you. Little Teoric Hale was reassigned after failing to capture you and your Apache. The bounties have been withdrawn as the army turns its attention elsewhere. I believe you could visit someday without immediate danger, though I understand if that day is far off. I miss you terribly, child, but I take comfort knowing you followed your heart. In these uncertain times, perhaps that is the only true compass we have. With enduring affection, Beryl." P.S. Your father would never admit it, but I caught him watching Apache children in town with the strangest expression. Perhaps grandchildren mend wounds nothing else can. Marabel folded the letter carefully, blinking back tears. The thought of reconciliation, however distant, was more than she had dared hope for. "Good news?" Iktan asked softly. "Perhaps someday," she said, tucking the letter away. "The bounties are gone. The hunt is over." He nodded thoughtfully. "Then maybe when the child is older we could journey north, not to stay but to visit, to show your father his grandchild." The idea startled her. "You would risk that? For you, and for our child." His calloused fingers closed around hers. Our peoples must learn to live together, Marabel. Perhaps it begins with small bridges, like the one we've built. She looked around the camp, at the people who had slowly accepted her, at the life she and Iktan had carved out against every expectation. Then she looked at the man beside her, the man whose return had once stopped her heart and set it beating to a new rhythm. I would like that, she said softly, to build bridges instead of walls, to show our child both worlds, and let them choose their own path between. Iktan reached out, gently tucking a loose strand of Maribel's dark hair behind her ear, the tenderness of the gesture still enough to steal her breath. You carry the courage of 10 warriors, Maribel Locke, he said softly. She laughed under her breath. I'm not sure the people would agree. They already do, Iktan replied. They have given you a name of their own. Did you know that? Her eyes widened. No, what do they call me? Ishitineba, he said, the woman who walks between fires. You stepped away from the fires of your people to stand among ours, yet you carry both flames within you. Tears gathered in Maribel's eyes. She had not expected this recognition, this quiet acceptance from the people she had once feared might never truly see her. I don't know what to say. There is nothing to say, Iktan answered gently. It is who you are. Perhaps who you have always been, even before we met. His hand rested again over her belly. And it is who our child will be as well. Not fully of one world or the other, but something new, something stronger. As the sun lowered toward the western horizon, casting long shadows across the camp, Marabel leaned into Iktan's shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of his heart. Behind them lay a past shaped by separation and tears. Around them stood a present forged through courage and sacrifice. Ahead waited a future uncertain, but one they would face together. I never told you, Marabel said suddenly, what I thought when you appeared in the doorway of the trading post that day, when my heart forgot how to beat. Iktan looked down at her, curious. What did you think? She smiled, the memory still sharp. I thought, there he is, the man who holds my heart in his hands, and somehow he has brought it back to me. Iktan's arm tightened around her, and I thought, there she is, the woman for whom I would defy the world. She is still waiting. As the first stars pierced the deepening blue of the eastern sky, Maribel Locke and Iktan sat together before the wickiup that was now their home, fingers intertwined, hearts moving as one. They had crossed boundaries of culture and blood, endured danger and loss, defied a world determined to keep them apart. And in doing so, they proved that some fires cannot be extinguished, not by distance, not by time, not by armies, or by the heavy weight of expectation. Some fires burn forever, leaping across barriers, turning tears into steam, obstacles into ash, embers into an unquenchable flame, a flame that would light the way for generations yet to come. Dear listener, as the embers of Marabel and Iktan's story continue to glow in your imagination, allow us to share something quietly, just between us. We often hear that youth is life's golden hour, but perhaps that isn't true. The richest gold appears not at dawn, but in the amber light of sunset, when the day has gathered its wisdom and paints the sky with colors only experience can create. That is where you stand now, in life's most majestic hours. Like Marabel, who found courage when faced with impossible choices, you have shaped your life by standing at countless crossroads. Yet unlike her single defining moment, you have made thousands of brave decisions, quiet ones, that have shaped families, communities, and futures. When we think of you, We imagine hands that planted gardens others now enjoy, wisdom that guided younger souls through storms, and hearts that learned forgiveness. Not as weakness, but as strength. The modern world rarely pauses to honor this kind of power. But tonight, as you prepare for rest, know this. Your generation has weathered changes that would have stunned even the hardiest frontier settlers. From handwritten letters to messages sent across oceans in seconds. From shared party lines to faces seen across screens. From iron borders to invisible networks, you adapted with grace. Tonight, release any lingering regret. The paths not taken were never meant for your feet. The choices you made, even the painful ones, shaped the remarkable person you are now. Every line on your face maps a journey of courage younger generations can only hope to follow. May your sleep be as peaceful as those rare moments when life feels perfectly aligned. May your dreams carry you to wide horizons where age is not a limit, but a vantage point. And may you wake wrapped in the quiet strength of your own hard-earned wisdom, the most faithful guardian you will ever know. Remember, Marabel and Iktan fought desperately for a freedom you already hold, the freedom to live as your truest self, unburdened by the expectations of others. That is not merely a story's ending, it is your everyday victory. The dawn will come, as it always does. But tonight belongs to rest, to renewal, to the deep, restoring sleep that prepares you for tomorrow's possibilities. Trust your body's ancient wisdom as you drift into slumber, protected by a lifetime of resilience. May you find the sweetest rest. Finally, let me send my deep thanks to you. Thank you for giving your time to this story. Some journeys shape us, and we hope this one left a mark on your heart. There are more paths ahead, more legends of love, hardship, and redemption beneath the western sky. Please subscribe, leave your thoughts, and travel with us once again. Thank you, and God bless. Aviso legal. Disclaimer. The stories presented here are creative expressions and may mix historical inspiration with dramatized scenes. AI tools contribute to some elements of voice, imagery, and structure, but every published story is refined by editors and creators to ensure authentic emotional impact. We honor YouTube's policies and do not generate deceptive likenesses or artificial depictions of real people. All audiovisual components are legally licensed. Any use, redistribution, or alteration of this content must be granted through written consent. Your presence here means a lot. Thank you for supporting artistic storytelling.